My father looked me straight in the eyes and said, "If you want to keep living here, you'll pay $15,000, call it rent." I thought he was joking, but he didn't smile. And what hurt the most wasn't the money. It was how easily he said it. Like I was nothing more than a stranger living under his roof. Like I wasn't his son. Like everything I had ever done for this family meant absolutely nothing. I didn't answer him right away. I just sat there at the dining table, staring at the same chair I had been sitting in since I was a kid. The same table where we used to eat together every night. The same place where my mom used to laugh. But now, everything felt cold, different, unfamiliar. "I'm serious," he added, his voice calm. "You're 27 now. It's time you start paying your share." My stepmother Linda sat beside him, quietly sipping her tea like this had nothing to do with her. But I knew better. This wasn't just him. This was her. It had been building for years. Ever since my mom passed away, things slowly started changing. At first, it was small things. Linda moving into the house just 6 months after the funeral. Her rearranging the kitchen, throwing away things that belonged to my mom, replacing them with her own. I stayed quiet. I told myself, maybe this is what moving on looks like. Maybe my dad just didn't want to be alone. But then she started changing him. Or maybe she just showed who he really was. He became distant, cold, short-tempered. The man who used to ask me about my day stopped caring, if I even came home. And when I lost my job last year, that's when everything got worse. It wasn't even my fault. The company shut down. Everyone got laid off. But to my dad, it didn't matter. "You should have saved money," he said back then. "I did," I told him. "But I helped pay for your surgery, remember?" He didn't respond. He just walked away. That moment stayed with me. Because that surgery, it wasn't cheap, and I didn't hesitate. I gave him everything I had saved. I didn't ask for it back. I didn't even think about it. Because he was my father. That's what family does, right? But now, sitting across from him, listening to him demand $15,000 like I owed him something, I realized something painful. To him, I wasn't family anymore. I was a burden. "I don't have that kind of money," I finally said, my voice low. "Then figure it out," he replied immediately. No hesitation, no emotion, just cold. Linda placed her cup down gently. "It's not unreasonable," she said softly. "You've been staying here for free." Free. That word hit me harder than anything else. Free? Was that what they thought? That I had been living here like some kind of guest? Like I hadn't contributed anything? I clenched my jaw but stayed calm. "I pay for groceries," I said. "I handle the bills when you forget. I fixed the car last month." "That's not the same as rent," my father cut in. I looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time in my life, I didn't recognize the man sitting in front of me. "Why now?" I asked quietly. There was a pause. Just for a second. Then Linda spoke. "We're planning to renovate the house," she said. "We need the money." Of course, that made sense now. They didn't need rent. They needed funding, and I was the easiest target. I let out a slow breath. "I'll move out," I said. Both of them looked surprised. Maybe they expected me to argue, to beg, to negotiate, but I didn't have the energy for that anymore. "Fine," my dad said after a moment. "But you have 1 week. 1 week to pack my life, to leave the only home I had ever known." I nodded slowly. Okay. And just like that, it was over. No emotions. No regrets. No hesitation. I stood up from the table and walked to my room. The same room I grew up in. The same walls that held every memory of my childhood. I looked around quietly. At the old desk. The closet, the bed. Everything felt smaller now. Or maybe I had just outgrown it. That night I didn't sleep. I just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my head. The surgery. The years I stayed. The way I helped without ever asking for anything in return. And now, this. I should have felt angry. But I didn't. I just felt empty. Like something inside me had finally broken. The next morning, I started packing, slowly, carefully, not because I had a lot to take, but because every item reminded me of something. A memory, a moment, a version of my life that no longer existed. By the 3rd day, I found a small apartment. It wasn't much. Just 1 bedroom, a small kitchen, and a window that barely let in light. But it was enough. More than enough. Because for the first time in a long time, it felt like mine. On the last day, I carried my final box to the door. My dad was sitting in the living room, watching TV. He didn't look at me. Didn't say anything. Linda was on her phone. I stood there for a moment, waiting, hoping. Maybe he would say something, anything, but he didn't. So I opened the door and walked out. And just like that, I was gone. No goodbye, no take care, nothing. But I didn't look back. Because deep down, I knew something they didn't. They thought they had gotten rid of a burden. They thought they had won. But they had no idea what was about to happen next. The first night in my new apartment felt strange. Too quiet. Too empty. I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, eating takeout from a plastic container. No table. No chair, just me. And the sound of my own breathing. It should have felt lonely. But it didn't. For the first time in years, there was no tension in the air. No silent judgment. No cold stares. Just peace. And that's when something inside me shifted. Not anger, not sadness. Something else. Clarity. I realized I had been holding myself back for them. For a house that was never really mine. For people who had already let me go long before I walked out that door. I picked up my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There was one name I stopped at, Daniel, my old manager. The same man who had called me 6 months ago about a job opportunity. One I turned down. At the time, I didn't want to leave the city. I didn't want to leave my father alone. Funny how things change. I stared at his name for a few seconds, then pressed call. He picked up on the third ring. "Hey, I didn't expect to hear from you," he said. "Yeah," I replied quietly. "I've been thinking about that offer you mentioned." There was a pause. "Well, it's still open," he said. "Actually, it's better now. We expanded. Higher position. Better pay." My grip tightened around the phone. "How much better?" He told me the number. And for a second, I couldn't speak. It was more than double what I used to earn. A fresh start. A real one. "When do you need me?" I asked. He didn't hesitate. "As soon as you can get here." I looked around my empty apartment. At the half-unpacked boxes. At the life I had just started rebuilding. And then I said something I never thought I would say. "I'll be there in a week." That same night, I started planning. Selling things I didn't need. Packing everything else. By the end of the third day, I was ready. There was nothing tying me here anymore. No reason to stay except one thought kept coming back. They didn't even try to stop me. Not a single call. Not a message. Nothing. It shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Because it confirmed everything I had been trying not to believe. To them, I was already gone. So I left. New city. New job. New life. And for a while, everything felt right. The job was better than I expected. The people respected me. Listened to me. Valued my work. Something I hadn't felt in a long time. I worked hard. Long hours. Late nights. But I didn't mind. Because for once, it meant something. Months passed. Then a year. And slowly, my life changed. I got promoted. Then promoted again. I moved into a bigger apartment. Bought my own car. Started saving real money. Not just surviving, but actually living. And during all that time, I didn't hear from them. Not once, no birthdays. No holidays, nothing. At first it hurt. Then it became normal. And eventually, I stopped thinking about them altogether. Until one night. It was late. Around 11 p.m., I had just gotten home from work. Exhausted, ready to collapse into bed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. But something told me to pick up. "Hello?" There was silence. Then, a voice I hadn't heard in over a year. "Son?" I froze. My chest tightened instantly. "Dad?" I said, barely recognizing my own voice. He sounded different. Weaker, not the same man. Who sat across from me demanding, 15,000, this voice? It sounded broken. I didn't know who else to call," he said. I stayed quiet, waiting. "We need your help." There it was. Not, "How are you?" Not, "I'm sorry." Just, "We need your help." I closed my eyes slowly. "What happened?" I asked. There was a long pause. Then he said something I never expected. "We might lose the house." The same house he pushed me out of. The same house he needed money to renovate. Now, they were about to lose it. How? I asked, my tone calm. Things didn't go as planned, he said vaguely. Of course they didn't. They never do. Linda's business failed, he added after a moment. We took loans. We thought we could manage it. I let out a quiet breath. And now? We're drowning, he said. For the first time, I heard fear in his voice, real fear. The kind you can't hide. We need money, he continued. Just a loan. We'll pay you back. A loan? I almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it felt familiar, like history repeating itself. Except this time, I wasn't the same person. I walked over to the window and looked out at the city lights. Everything I had built. Everything I had earned. Without them. How much? I asked. There was hesitation. Then he said it. 15,000. I closed my eyes, of course. The same number. The same demand, just different words. A slow silence filled the space between us. And in that moment, I realized something important. This wasn't just about money. This was about everything. About the past. About what they did. About who they thought I was. And who I had become. I opened my eyes. And for the first time since that night at the dining table, I felt something, not anger, not pain, control. I'll think about it, I said calmly. Please, he replied quickly. We don't have much time. I didn't answer. I just ended the call and stood there, staring into the distance. Because they had no idea. They weren't asking the same person anymore. And this time, things were going to be very different. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was stressed, but because my mind was clear in a way it hadn't been in years. I kept replaying his voice. Not the words, the tone. The same man who once spoke to me like I was nothing, now sounded like he was standing on the edge of something he couldn't control. And for the first time, I wasn't the one trying to hold everything together. I made coffee early that morning and sat by the window. The city was just waking up. Cars moving, people rushing, everyone busy with their own lives. And there I was, holding a decision that could change everything. I could send the money. Just like before. No questions. No conditions. Be the good son again. Or I could do something different. Something they never expected. I picked up my phone and stared at his number. Then I put it down again. No, not yet. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it right. Later that day, I called Daniel. Hey, I need a few days off, I said. Everything okay? He asked. Yeah, I replied. Just something I need to handle. Back home. He didn't ask questions. Take your time, he said. You've earned it. That word again. Earned. It felt strange. But good. By evening, I had booked my ticket. I was going back. Not because they called me, but because I had something to finish. The flight felt longer than it was. Not because of distance, but because of memory. Every mile took me closer to a version of myself I had left behind. But I wasn't afraid, because I knew that version of me was gone. When I landed, the air felt different, familiar but heavy. I took a cab straight to my old neighborhood. Nothing had changed. Same streets, same houses, same silence, except this time. I wasn't coming back as someone who belonged there. I was just a visitor. The house came into view slowly, and for a moment, I just stared at it. It looked smaller, older, worn down. The paint was peeling. The garden was dry. Even from the outside, you could tell something was wrong. I paid the driver and stepped out. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just walked up to the front door and knocked. It took a few seconds. Then the door opened. And there he was, my father, but not the man I remembered. He looked thinner, tired, like life had taken more from him than he expected. His eyes widened when he saw me. You came, he said softly. I nodded. Yeah. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then he stepped aside. Come in. I walked inside, and instantly, the memories hit. But they didn't hurt anymore. They just existed. Linda was sitting on the couch. When she saw me, she stood up quickly. Her expression changed from surprise to something else, relief. You're here, she said. Not hello, not how have you been. Just, you're here. I gave a small nod. No smile, no warmth. Just acknowledgement. We all sat down. The same living room. the same space where everything changed. But this time, the roles were different. So, I said calmly, tell me what's going on. They looked at each other. Then my father spoke. We made some bad decisions, he admitted. That was new. He never admitted anything before. We took loans to fix the house, he continued. But then Linda's business failed, and we couldn't keep up with the payments. Linda looked down. We thought it would recover, she said quietly. But it didn't. And now? I asked. We're behind on everything, my father said. If we don't pay soon, they'll take the house. Silence filled the room. I leaned back slightly, taking it all in. The same house they pushed me out of, now slipping through their fingers. And you need 15,000, I said. He nodded. Yes. I looked at both of them, carefully, slowly, and then I asked the one question that had been sitting in my chest for over a year. Why should I help you? The room went still, completely still. They weren't expecting that. Not from me. Not from the person who used to give without asking. My father opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Linda spoke first. Because we're family, she said. Family. That word again. I let out a quiet breath. Family? I repeated. And for the first time, there was a slight edge in my voice. Is that what I was when you asked me for? $15,000 to stay in this house? Neither of them answered. Was I family when I paid for your surgery? I continued, looking at my father. His eyes dropped. Was I family when I lost my job? And you told me it was my fault? Still no answer. The silence was louder than anything they could say. I leaned forward slightly, calm, controlled. But suddenly, now I'm family again? Linda shifted uncomfortably. That's not fair, she said. Things were different back then. No, I said quietly. They weren't. I looked straight at my father. This is exactly the same. Another silence. But this time, it felt different. Because now, they were the ones sitting in it, not me. I didn't come here to argue, I said after a moment. I came here to understand. My father finally looked up. And for the first time, I saw something I had never seen before. Regret. Real regret. I was wrong, he said. Simple, quiet, but heavy. I shouldn't have treated you that way. Linda looked at him, surprised. He didn't stop. I took you for granted, he continued. I thought you'd always be there. I didn't react. I just listened. And when you left, he added, his voice breaking slightly, I realized how much I lost. The room felt heavier now. Not with tension, but with truth. And for a moment, I saw him again. Not as the man who pushed me out, but as the father I used to know. But I didn't let that change anything. Because feelings don't erase actions. I stood up slowly. They both looked at me, waiting, hoping. I can help you, I said calmly. Their faces changed. Instantly, relief, hope, desperation. But then I continued. On one condition. And just like that, everything shifted again. They both froze the moment I said it. On one condition. You could see it on their faces. That small shift from relief to uncertainty. My father leaned forward slightly. What condition? He asked. His voice was careful now. Like he didn't want to say the wrong thing. Like he finally understood that this situation was no longer in his control. I looked around the room slowly. At the walls. At the furniture. At the space that once felt like home. And then I looked back at them. I'm not giving you the money, I said. Their expressions dropped instantly. Confusion. Panic. What? Linda said quickly. But you just said, I said I can help, I interrupted calmly. Not that I'll hand you cash. My father's face tightened. Then what does that mean? He asked. It means, I said, my tone steady, I'll pay off the debt directly. They both went quiet, processing, trying to understand. No middle steps. No transfers to you. No promises, I continued. I deal with the bank myself. Linda frowned. That's the same thing, she said. No, I replied. It's not. Because this way, there would be no lies. No mismanagement. No things didn't go as planned. Just the truth. Handled properly. My father nodded slowly. Okay, he said. That's fair. But I wasn't done. There's more, I added. And just like that, the tension came back. I knew it. Linda muttered under her breath. I ignored her. If I do this, I said, looking directly at my father, the house will legally be transferred to my name. Silence, heavy, immediate. Linda stood up. No, she said sharply. Absolutely not. My father didn't speak. He just stared at me, trying to figure out if I was serious. I didn't break eye contact. I pay the debt, I said. The house becomes mine, completely, no arguments. No confusion. That's ridiculous, Linda snapped. This is our home. I turned my head slightly toward her. Was it my home when you asked me for $15,000 to stay here? She didn't answer. Her jaw tightened. This isn't revenge, I said calmly. This is security. I looked back at my father. You said you're drowning. This is a way out. Linda shook her head. You're taking advantage of us, she said. I almost smiled. But I didn't. Am I? I asked quietly. Or am I just playing by the same rules you taught me? That hit, hard. She went silent. My father leaned back in his chair, his face unreadable. He looked tired, more tired than before. This is too much, he said finally. Is it? I replied. You asked me for the same amount, just to stay here. That's different, Linda said quickly. I looked at her. No, I said. It's not. The room fell into another long silence. This time, no one rushed to fill it. Because deep down, they knew. There wasn't a better option. I took a step back, giving them space. I'm not forcing you, I said. You can say no. And I meant it. I wasn't here to beg. I wasn't here to convince. I was here to offer a choice. The same way they did. My father rubbed his face slowly, thinking, weighing everything. Then he looked at Linda. She shook her head again. But her voice wasn't as strong this time. There has to be another way, she said. There isn't, he replied quietly. That surprised me. He turned back to me. You'd really do it? He asked. Yes. No tricks? No tricks. Another pause. Then he nodded, slowly. Okay. Linda turned to him instantly. You can't be serious. I am, he said. This is our only chance. She looked at him like she didn't recognize him. Then she looked at me. And for the first time, there was no confidence left in her expression. Just frustration and fear. This isn't over, she said quietly. I didn't respond. Because for me, it already was. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder, prepared, organized, everything ready. They noticed. Of course they did. You planned this, Linda said. I looked at her. No, I said calmly. I just learned from the past. My father took the papers with shaking hands. He read through them slowly. Every line, every detail, making sure there were no surprises. There weren't, because I didn't need tricks. The truth was enough. After a few minutes, he signed. Linda hesitated longer. But eventually, she signed too. And just like that, everything changed, again, but this time, on my terms. I stood up and collected the papers. I'll handle everything with the bank tomorrow, I said. My father nodded. Thank you, he said quietly. I paused for a second. Then I replied, This isn't a favor. He understood. I could see it in his eyes. I walked toward the door. But before I left, he spoke again. Will you come back? He asked. Not to the house, but to him. I stopped, just for a moment. Then I said the only honest thing I could. I don't know. And then I walked out, not as the son who was pushed out, but as the one who chose to leave, and came back different, stronger, untouchable. But what they didn't realize yet was that the real change was still coming. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because I had to, but because my mind was already moving, clear, focused, certain. I didn't feel heavy. I didn't feel angry. I just felt in control. I got dressed, picked up the folder, and headed straight to the bank. Everything moved fast after that. Calls, meetings, signatures, verifications. The kind of process that usually takes weeks was done in 2 days, because I made sure of it. By the third day, it was official. The debt was cleared. The house was mine, completely. No hidden clauses. No shared ownership. No confusion. Just my name. I sat in my car outside the bank for a few minutes after it was done. not celebrating, not smiling, just breathing, because something had finally closed. A chapter I didn't even realize was still open. But ownership wasn't the point. Not really. This was about something deeper, something they needed to understand. And I was going to make sure they did. I drove back to the house that afternoon. This time I didn't knock. I used the key, and for a second, that alone said everything. Linda was in the kitchen when I walked in. She turned around quickly. Her expression tightened the moment she saw me. "You should knock," she said. I placed the folder on the table calmly. "I don't need to," I replied. She didn't say anything, but her silence spoke loudly. My father came in from the other room. He looked at me, then at the folder. "It's done?" he asked. "Yes," he nodded slowly. Relief washed over his face. But it didn't last long, because he knew there was more coming. I opened the folder and slid the papers toward them. "Take a look," I said. They both leaned in, reading carefully, line by line, and as they read, their expressions changed. Not dramatically, just small shifts, realization, understanding, truth settling in. "This means," Linda started, her voice lower now. "Yes," I said. "It means the house is legally mine." Silence, no arguments this time. No denial, because it was all right there. Black and white. My father placed the papers down slowly. "I understand," he said. And for once, I believed him. Linda didn't speak. She just stood there, processing something she couldn't fight. I leaned against the counter, slightly, calm, relaxed, not because I wanted to make them uncomfortable, but because I wasn't uncomfortable anymore. "There's something else," I said. They both looked at me again, careful, waiting. "I'm not kicking you out," I continued. That caught them off guard, clearly. Relief flashed across my father's face again. Linda blinked, confused. "But," I added, and just like that, the tension came back. "You'll stay here as tenants." Silence, again. "You'll pay rent," I said simply. Linda let out a short, sharp breath. "You're serious," she said. "Yes," my father nodded slowly. "How much?" he asked. I looked at him, and for a brief second, I remembered that night, that table, that number. "Not $15,000, I said calmly. "I'm not you." He looked down, ashamed. "Just enough to cover maintenance and taxes," I continued. "Nothing more." Linda crossed her arms. "This is humiliating," she said quietly. I looked at her. "No," I replied. "This is balance." She didn't argue. Because there was nothing left to say, my father spoke after a moment. "We'll pay," he said. I nodded. "I know." Another silence filled the room. But this one was different. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't painful. It was settled, clear, fair. I picked up the folder again. "I'll send you the details," I said. Then I turned toward the door. But before I left, my father called out again. "Wait!" I stopped. He walked a few steps closer. His eyes weren't the same anymore. They weren't cold. They weren't distant. They were honest. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not forced, not rushed, just simple, real, for everything." I looked at him for a moment, and I didn't feel anger or satisfaction, just understanding. "I know," I said quietly. And this time, that was enough. I walked out again. But this time, it felt different. Not like I was leaving something behind, but like I had finally put it in its place. Weeks passed after that, then months. Things settled into a strange kind of normal. They paid rent on time. No arguments. No complaints. Linda kept her distance. My father tried. Small calls. Short conversations. Nothing forced. Nothing fake. Just slow effort. And me, I didn't rush anything. I didn't push. I didn't pull away either. I just let things be what they were. Because some things don't go back to what they were before. And maybe they're not supposed to. One evening, I visited the house again. Not for business. Just because my father was sitting outside, in the same chair he used to sit in years ago. He looked up when he saw me. And this time, he smiled. A small one, but real. "Hey," he said. "Hey," I replied. I sat down beside him. No tension, no weight. Just quiet. After a few minutes, he spoke. "You did good," he said. I didn't answer right away. Then I said softly, "I had to." He nodded, like he understood. And maybe he finally did. Because in the end, this was never about the money. It was about respect, about knowing your worth, about not letting people treat you like you're less just because they think you'll always stay. And sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is not walk away, but come back on your own terms. If this story made you feel something, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And if you want more real, emotional stories like this, subscribe to YH Revenge Stories.